Felix, happy new year. We're basically careening towards 2026. Not a lot of college coming out. I think the only thing that before we came right on this was that Chip Kelly got hired by Northwestern.
Ooh.
I think there's certain guys that just do really, really well in college. I don't know necessarily what's going on. I mean, obviously, we pay way too much attention to the AFC West because I'm a Broncos fan, you're a Chiefs fan, but the Raiders just seem to be an absolute dumpster fire. And I think like we had our annual our weekly a game was played award, and that goes to the Giants Raiders. There's always that one just total like dumpster fire of a game, and this happens to be it this week. Dart played much better. Las Vegas looks incompetent. What say
But
you?
I think this might get a game was played award of the year because it might come down to like who gets the number one overall pick, and it comes down to like it's Vegas because the Giants are even more incompetent enough to lose that or to win that game. Like you kind of have to lose that game if you want to start your franchise over. If you believe in Dart, I don't know where they stand internally as a franchise when it comes to that, but like it might be like that game to the nth degree because like yeah, nobody cares because it was the other game in the Buffalo Eagles window, but also it matters a little bit more when it comes late April.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I know I don't want to spend just a ton of time on the Raiders,
Right.
but I think everybody could have seen this coming. I think the Giants are a little shocking just because I think a lot of people thought Dable could really get it together with Dart. They did the weird quarterback thing with Russell Wilson, and then just Jameis Winston, which by the way, we had if you didn't see, Felix's dream might come true. Jameis Winston, people are already trying to get Jameis Winston on the Chiefs for next year.
Oh my goodness, I can't
But,
wait. I
but,
cannot wait.
but the Raiders roster, I mean, outside of Max Crosby, I think there's a little bit of talent on the front end. But you go and you look, especially defensively. I mean, what were they supposed to do? I just don't understand. I think another thing, I was talking to a buddy of mine too around the league, and it was like no one's talking about the fact that Pete Carroll hired his two kids to run the offense and then gave Chip Kelly the offensive coordinator title. Like you can't have it both ways. I just think like from the beginning, this looks really, really bad. Then you have also just the weird Tom Brady vibes that are just coming around, and that are like, okay, is he helping or is he hurting? Sometimes too, just for if you're a casual fan and you're listening to this, not every player actually is like really good at the football side of things. They're good at the playing side, but the coaching and the GM side, that it's been proven time and time again that sometimes no, you're not successful. Like John Elway could not analyze quarterbacks from the college level.
Couldn't do it. Almost wouldn't do it. And it's so wild. And like you hope that like Fernando Mendoza goes there and like, but like what foundation does he get when he gets there? Because they need to fix their offensive line. They need to get some weapons. They need to figure so many things out. And Fernando Mendoza is he just like that one quarterback coming out in the class that like, oh, if Dante Moore comes out, sure the Browns will take him at 3 or whatever it'll be. But at the same time, it's like, what does the future of the Raiders move forward? I mean, we spent the first 4 minutes of the pod talking about the Raiders, saying we don't want to talk a lot about them, but it is kind of an interesting case because of all the things that are going around with the situation because they're the Raiders.
Yeah, and I think too. Here's my biggest thing, and then we'll jump off of this. Is just that Tom Brady doesn't live in Las Vegas. So you look drafting Mendoza or having Tom Brady around as like kind of some like football savant. It sounds great on paper, but I think it's hurting more than it's helping. The Raiders have always done just really odd things, and this is just another
one
on the laundry list of weird things that the Raiders do. Hey, before we move on, make sure to hit that follow button if you're on Apple or Spotify. If you're watching on the desktop, just go ahead and whichever one is your favorite, just go hit follow. It helps the show grow. This is one of the only football shows that is actually talking ball. I mean, look at us. We just spent 5 minutes talking about the Raiders. So what are we
talking Raiders this week?
Right.
On New Year's Eve when this comes out.
Of all weeks.
Talking about the Raiders today.
So to get the algorithm back to where it needs to be, we're going to talk about Dak Prescott's legacy and the Cowboys versus the Commander. It's an official football show. So stat of the game, I think, is that the Cowboys were 6 for 6 on 4th downs. Commanders just couldn't get a stop. Look, Dan Quinn, I don't even know how to describe it. It took 3 years, I think, for him to get what we would consider a top defense, maybe a top 10 defense in Dallas. We're now working towards year 3. I don't see it. The Lattimore pick was one of those of like, hey, he's great when he plays, but he never plays. And now you're not even playing man coverage because you don't trust your secondary. You got Emmanuel Forbes who goes to the Rams and looks like a starting corner in the NFL. So I think there's a lot of things going on with the Commanders. People are talking about like Cliff Kingsbury's not even going to come back next year. Well, if Cliff Kingsbury's not going to come back, then what is Dan Quinn still doing there?
Yeah, it is such an interesting thing. And I think that it's going to be kind of fun where I think that like Dan Quinn's going to become kind of a sidebar here, but like he's going to become like the media version of like Chuck Pagano, what he was for the last few years on the McAfee show, just kind of showing up on shows being like, oh, this guy can talk. And he still knows ball, obviously, but like, yeah, probably not a head coach and like he probably not going to be a coordinator ever again just because it's like, yeah, time's moved on and like, yeah, we've seen it all with your Dan Quinn. And so, but we'll see as things move on. But like with Cliff Kingsbury and like, with Jaden Daniels, it's another bad team in a weird situation because they have so many things coming in that are new with all the new ownership group and new GM, new everything. Do they want to turn it over again because they have this one piece of incredibly delicate, this asset that's incredibly delicate, but what do they do with it moving forward? I don't know. And is Dan Quinn the guy that takes you forward with that? Probably not, because of all the things we've just talked about.
Yeah, I think I thought they did a good job. Look, Dan Quinn was the right guy to hire at that time because I think he was tied to Cliff Kingsbury. I think that's kind of what his selling point is. Like, look, I'm a seasoned coach. I've been around. I've already, I've been to a Super Bowl. I've worked for the Cowboys, so I've been through that whole circus. I know this. I know the NFC East. New ownership, let's hire him. But I think what happens is you hire slow, you fire fast. So you take your time. I thought he was the right guy in the right place. Look, this is so crazy, but this is how the NFL works. And this is one of the reasons why I've just kind of pivoted to really doing a lot in the NFL space is just because it changes so fast. Is that last year we have Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu are all pros. This defense looks really legit.
They were in the NFC Championship game last year.
And it looks, we saw, I think too, injury luck plays a lot into this.
They kicked the hell out of the Lions, who were wire to wire the best team in the league.
Yeah. So but here's the thing is that I always feel like you regress to the mean. And that's what we did in 2025. This was a defensive structure that was never very good at stopping the run. And it was bad in Dallas. It's bad in Washington. The Cowboys rushed 44 times for over 200 yards. What are we playing in the 90s? And so they controlled the game the entire time. Let's pivot. So first of all, if you're going to get rid of Cliff, you have to get rid of Quinn. I think that if anything, Cliff probably needs to be some sort of he might even be the head coach option for you. I don't think you get rid of him I think you keep him and Anthony Lynn together because that offense, we know that offense is not fun to go up against when everybody's healthy. I do think Jaden Daniels needs to take a little bit of a page from Lamar and Hurts and kind of like even Josh Allen at times of just like, look, run the ball when you need to run the ball. But you are one of those guys that will take just a Wile E. Coyote run and just get absolutely blasted. You were able to survive it at the college. Yeah, for 8 yards. And you were able to survive that at the college level. But this is a grown man football league. Like, you cannot run the ball. Jackson Dart needs to do probably the exact same thing. And we just talked about the Giants. So to me, I think there needs to be look, if I think Quinn probably stays, I don't think they fire him. I don't think Kingsbury's going anywhere. I think they're going to try it for year 3 and figure this out. But I do think Quinn needs to figure out the defense. I think he needs to become a head coach. I think somebody else needs to run the defense. I think, look, Witt was great, but you guys want to try to do everything man coverage. You have to pivot to zone. You can tell that that's not what you want to do. And speaking of a full defensive reset and really a full reset, let's go and talk about the Cowboys. Look, I live in DFW. Right now, this is typical Dallas because everybody here thinks that the world revolves around them. So if you are outside of this market, you are probably tired of hearing it. That's why we always joke on the show about Dak Prescott's legacy. Like, you can't be a football show if you don't bring up Dak Prescott. And like, where we are now is that in DFW, everybody wants Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. Well, here's the thing. Like, yeah, his contract is up with the Vikings, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to re-sign him. Hell, they'll probably let other people. It's kind of like when Lamar hit the free market and every team, like everybody was crying collusion. And it was like, no, we're just not going to do the negotiating for you. Like, we're not going to sit here and be like, hey, here you go. Unless you're like the Browns and who, I mean, come on, give them a full contract of like, you know, of $500 million or something. But my point to this is that they're not going to let you negotiate his contract for him, right? Because that's only just going to inflate the number. Again, who's another guy that's been on the list? Schwartz, the Browns. Well, Kevin Stefanski's still head coach, which means Schwartz is still a defense coordinator. He's still under contract. So Flores is, yeah, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, but he's still under contract with Vikings. You have Schwartz still under contract for the Browns. And then the other one that everybody wants is Jim Leonard. Well, Jim Leonard doesn't fit the mold for what Jerry Jones wants. Jerry Jones wants a former head coach, wants somebody who's established, somebody that has a cowboy tie. Well, you know, Jim doesn't fit any of those things. And then also, he's under contract with the Broncos. Okay, so what if Vance Joseph, who's been tied to a really heavily tied to the Giants job, I think that's kind of where it is. And there's no guarantee that he gets that job. I mean, they have a quarterback, so one that they think. So it's like maybe they'll go offense. But my point to that is all of these guys are under contract, and you guys just want them to come to Dallas in a lateral move. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the case. I think if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, which he has fully deserved, which I think he will get next year, because again, we just mentioned it, like the LA quarterback nightmare scenario that he went under. But to me, Jim Leonard's your next defense coordinator with the Broncos. They're not letting him walk out the door. So it's just a weird vibe in Dallas. And two,
because it always is.
Well, yes, but two, also Flores doesn't fit the mold. I tweeted on there. I got a bunch of Cowboys fans were all up in arms because I tweeted out, like, I need you guys to understand, like, Flores is a different type of animal. If you bring him in, your entire defensive roster is out the door, especially with the young DBs. And they're like, get rid of all of them. And I'm like, but that's my point.
You can't do that.
You can't fire sell your roster. By the way, y'all know Jerry, he loves the draft and he loves developing those guys and finding out, oh, Deron Bland was a 5th round draft pick. Trayvon Diggs was a 5th round draft pick. It's like, yeah, they want to develop in the draft. You don't bring in a guy that's like, get me a bunch of vets, and they can't do, and that model won't happen with what they did in Minnesota.
Well, and I think like for 8 of the 10 reasons why Belichick and Jerry Jones wouldn't work, what is why Jerry Jones and Brian Flores wouldn't work is because of a lot of the things that you're saying, is because he has to do it this way, and it works his way. And he's been right over this many years, and especially right in Minnesota. You want him to do a lot of the things that he's done in Minnesota in Dallas, but you have to do it his way. And Jerry Jones.
Well, for how many years have people been sitting here and saying, can you bring a big time free agent into Dallas? And they just never do it. And so my point to this, there was somebody
couldn't even keep their own with Micah.
Right, exactly. So it's like, there's no even guarantee that Pickens stays in Dallas this year. So
and
my
should
point, exactly. And so my point to this was like, and I can't remember who it was, but I think it's like Boots Lombardi or whatever, was like, kind of basically was like, get rid of all of them. And I said, okay, that's fine. Who are you bringing in at safety? because you need two of them. What veteran are you bringing in at safety? What veteran are you going to bring in at corner to play over? So it's funny because Bobby Belt, who's on 105.3 The Fan here, he was talking about the same thing of like, hey, Flores, this is the deal. So I went and like on PowerPoint, I got Shaq Griffin, Fabian Monroe. Okay, you can keep Malik Hooker, you keep Deron Bland, and then what? You're going to beg Harrison Smith at like 40 years old to come play one more year as a bridge safety? That's going to be your secondary? And I put them all together. I put 2026, and Foots the King, who does a bunch of stuff on YouTube for the Cowboys. I sent it to him too, and he was just crying because he was like, dude, bro, this is your secondary. You think your secondary was bad this year? That's going to be your secondary. Oh, but the blitz covers it up. Please don't talk to me about it. I've covered Brian Flores' defense from the very beginning in 2023, like the face melter 5,000 stuff. So I don't know, man. I just think the Cowboys, again, the fans can't see the forest amidst trees. It's just bad. Yeah. It's bad.
All right, let's talk another Christmas Day game, Broncos Chiefs. My Christmas got ruined like 3 weeks ago, so
yeah, you already knew it was going to be bad. Though I knew
it was better than than I thought it was going to be initially. But like, I mean, because the Chiefs had their moments, but then it was like a few Andy Reid moments where it was like, all right, dude, what are we doing here? And like, of course, Chris Jones jumps off sides right when you need him to.
Yes,
and so like. There were a few moments where it was like Bo Nix is going to give you an opportunity here or there, and you got something to play with, but like, yeah, you're without Mahomes, and it's that good of a defense, and you're already depleted as it is.
Yeah, and the game was never in doubt, but when you know this because you've lived this as a Chiefs fan for really like the last 2 or 3 years, but when you basically play your 4-minute offense the entire game, it gets a little scary. The game was never in doubt. I don't think anybody was sitting like, well, man, the Broncos might lose this one. They were
You
winning.
Don't know what I was doing on Christmas.
I know you wanted a Christmas miracle, but it was not going to happen. I say, but my point, like, again, we've talked about this ad nauseum on this show. Another shot of Bo Nix yelling at Payton. This is late in the game too. Like, give me the damn play so that I can then go and make the play that we need to go and score. I mean, we're in the red zone and you're reading out of a Harry Potter novel to try and get that in there. And then he's got to repeat it. I think, look, there's a lot of rumors running around the Broncos about Davis Webb. So it's like, okay, if Vance Joseph leaves, is he taking Davis Webb? I think that's a big key there because he's the guy that is the go-between. So if you've ever seen the big kind of gangly looking dude that's standing next to Sean Payton and like getting in between Sean Payton and Bo Nix, that's Davis Webb.
He used to be an NFL quarterback. Don't call him gangly. Hey,
yeah, no. Well, now he is. You know what I mean? Like, he's the big, tall dude that's like, that stands in between them.
They've said he's going to be a head coach for years now. Like even when he was a player, I think.
Yeah, I think he's really good. I've met him a few times. Really, really smart guy. His dad's a head football coach, or was. I don't know if he still is, up in Frisco. So I mean, he's a Texas high school football guy. He's been around. I think he played at Tech in Virginia Tech. Bounced around in the league for a long time. I gotta commend you. The Chiefs defense came to play. Yeah, the ultimate mistake that kind of sealed the deal was from Chris Jones, your future Hall of Famer, that you would wish that didn't, which is I put in the show notes. That was the chef's kiss right there for the game. My dad called out of the game. I was like, is that not the way that you wanted to end it? Of Chris Jones? Look at Felix's face. I'm so sorry. If you're not watching on video, you need to. Felix is crying on the inside.
It's just, you know what? When we got the 9th pick, and I was sitting there like, 1% chance to get the 6th overall pick, and I was like, oh yeah, the Saints don't need Jeremiah Love. They got Devin Neal. He'll be coming back off the IR. Just reasons why he should drop. Probably not. They probably end up with the 11th overall pick, but it is what it is. But that's the life I'm living right now. Have fun with the 1 seed. Stupid Broncos. Anyway, gosh. To another AFC West team that we both unreasonably kind of like, the LA Chargers. They fall to the Texans in like the same way that they're going to lose in the playoffs eventually, whether it's the Texans that beat them eventually or whomever else it is that they just got after them in the pass rush. Justin Herbert never really had time and still made some plays down the stretch, and it got really close. But the Texans also showed reasons why they're going to lose in the playoffs, or likely going to lose in the playoffs, because CJ Stroud and somebody, like, I heard on TV or radio, whatever it was, that like CJ Stroud, what happened to you? I was like, he's been bad for 2 years now. Is this just it?
Yeah, and what I think I don't really understand.
There's 2 coordinators now too.
Yes, the Bobby Slovic, the very first year, I think people were just really surprised that he was as good as he was, and Slovic was kind of just running the greatest hits, and then they won the playoff game against the Browns with Flacco. When you can just like Flacco realized, like, yeah, I'm probably done with like being able to win games. Like, really, like I'm not a franchise quarterback.
Why are the
anymore.
Bengals calling me again? Fine.
Exactly. And so to me, it's really odd. I think he's going to have the same career arc as like a Trevor Lawrence. Like, people are going to just assume that he's just not very good, or people are going to bang on the table and say he is good. It's the offensive coordinator. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of problems, but I think at the end of the day, it's the same. The Texans have the same issues as the Chargers, and you kind of mentioned this, is like their offensive line on both sides is terrible. And so it's like when you give up, they caught. So I thought it's so funny we're talking about the offense, but Stroud and Kaylee caught the Chargers early on both the opening drives in quarters coverage. The first one, they got into a quad set, so they got into a bunch, and they put the running back to the same side, had a nub tight end on the other side, meaning that there's no receiver outside of them, knowing that they could get the Chargers to check into a quarters look. The problem, and I need to, like, the all 22 doesn't really show the whole process. They're all within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. So this is like running high school version of quarters in the NFL. Not going to work. They basically just went from a 3-by-1 to basically a 2-by-2, got the safety to really nail down on the other side, and then it was just Stroud throwing to space. You then go to the next one, they're in cover 6, which means you play quarters to the passing strength, you play cover 2 to the other side. The half field safety only has to deal with a condensed or a tight single receiver, the X. He pedals outside of him. Nico Collins is on the other side, runs like a 20-yard sit down, grabs the safety on the other side. It's the same throw, just the opposite direction. I think Minter cleaned it up. They started playing a lot deeper after that. And two, like, Nico Collins is covered by the corner. Safety continued to get – it's the thing that I used to tell my kids all the time, like, naked or clothed. Is the receiver naked? Because if he's running butt naked through the middle of the field, we got to go put clothes on that guy. Like, go get the guy, right? If he's clothed, he's fully clothed, he's not naked, go find work in the post. And so it's like one of those, just clean it up. I thought they did a good job cleaning it up. 5 total sacks. Stroud was 4 for 10, I think, when he was pressured. But look, this is how this defense works. And you kind of mentioned it, is like the problem with the Chargers right now is that they were designed, and they showed you early. Remember, they came out and were like, we are not running the ball. Even though it looks like it, we are not running the ball.
I like Greg Roman this year, where he's like, yeah, you thought you knew what I was gonna do. I guess
teaching you thought you couldn't teach an old dog new tricks. Look who got a new passing game playbook.
Oh yeah, Marion Hampton was hurt for like the middle part of the season, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. But the whole deal, like this whole deal, and I wrote about it this week on Match Quarters, was like LA wants to invite the run so that they can play light. They actually give up some of the it's like I think they give up the highest percentage per run, whereas like the Bills give up huge explosives, but they're like home run hitters, right? Where either they give up like a 10+ yard run, or they're going to tackle you for loss. And it's so that their efficiency metrics are all messed up. LA's like, look, I'll give you the 4-yard, 5-yard run, and you can do that consistently, but I know you're going to throw the ball. And when you throw the ball, that's when we cook. And so that's really where they are. Well, that works when your offense is also throwing the ball and scoring points. And I think what we saw with the Texans is the same reason why I don't think the Chargers will be very successful in the playoffs, is that you can get up, like they got up on them 14-0, and then the Texans just set on the ball. And there was never really of like, okay, are the Chargers going to be able to come back from that? Because they can't really throw the ball because they can't protect Herbert. And the running game is great, but you're down 14-0. So that whole deal of like game control, and then the Texans, once you go full pass, like once you're like, hey, we have to pass on the Texans, it's game over too. They're
Yeah. All right, moving forward, AFC North, NFC North matchup here. What would have been an elite quarterback matchup, or what a lot of people think is an elite quarterback matchup between Jordan Love and Lamar Jackson. But both of them are out, leading Derrick Henry to be like, all right, I got it, guys. Which I think it is kind of interesting where also on the other side of the ball, Malik Willis is having like a Kyle Pitts like couple of weeks where he's like, yeah, let me get a contract real quick. I'm probably not going to be here next year. Let me be somewhere else though, and maybe as a starter, depending on like what that reclamation project looks like. Even though he doesn't like necessarily fit the Sam Darnold archetype, if you will, because he was a 3rd round pick. But whatever. How'd you feel about the Green Bay Packers defense over these last couple of weeks? I mean, Micah Parsons goes out, and I know that he wouldn't have changed this particular result, but at the same time, this defense is different over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so they've had the Micah Parsons would not have changed. I put that in the show notes too.
Right.
I think they've had some injuries too up in the front. And I think the Ravens just wanted to keep a clean game. They had to win, and the best way to win is to give it to the best player on their team, which which was available, and that's Derrick Henry, and just let him have a vintage game. He's actually, Derrick Henry's amazing because there is I think it's like the 328 rule, where when you go over 328 carries in a season, like you basically fall off a cliff. And Derrick Henry has actually like gotten better since he did that with the Titans. So it's like he's one of the few running backs that just kind of has reversed in age, or just has never aged. And I think a lot of it has to do to his run style and he's huge. Right. And so he just doesn't take a lot. He doesn't take a lot of big hits.
He still feels like really light on his feet at the same time, too.
Yeah. I mean, and really all the Ravens did is old school. They ran the Greg Roman playbook, right? They got an eye. They ran power. They ran some pin pull. They ran, lead. I think they ran lead from I formation probably 40 times of his 36 carries. I would almost guarantee you that at least 25 of them were just a lead, off tackle lead, inside lead. So it wasn't anything there. But this is a game where I think, like, again, the Packers kind of are where the Bears were last year, where they looked really good early, get some injuries and some snags, and then they just kind of trail off at the end. This is not a team that you want that you're looking at now that's like, okay, if Love isn't playing in the playoffs, this is going to be, we're going to be there for one game and then we're out.
And speaking of, speaking of contracts, Matt LaFleur last year of his deal. So is Gutekunst. And like they're kind of, you say they're in the last, or they're in the same spot as where the Bears were last year. Well, look where the Bears are this year. Like, you should be where they are, if not surpassing them. And you haven't reached the levels of success that the Lions have. And so, like, what does that look like? And I mean, the Vikings are a bit of a sleeping giant. So what does that division look like moving forward? And where do the Packers fit in it moving forward? I don't know. All right. Bengals, Cardinals, another game that doesn't really matter, but also Joe Burrow's like, fine, I do like football. I'll throw it around and everybody will remember that I'm good, but just a pass rusher or a middle linebacker, please.
Yeah, that's the thing. And two, like with the Cardinals, it's like Brissett was efficient again, but there's no juice, especially with no run game. Like having James Conner is not there. I think that defensive experiment, and I've been the biggest fan. I've talked about it a bunch on here too. I think what they're doing on defense is really, really cool. But sometimes cool stuff doesn't work when you start getting these injuries. I think we've seen this time and time again of these meme style, and it's probably too harsh to call it that, but that's really what it is. It's like a meme style or an outlier style of defense works really well until your 11 pieces aren't there. And then once that secondary started falling apart, They couldn't play those guys. The pass rush, like Sweat again. Look, man, always, if you have an outlier, like an edge defender goes off one year, always look who their inside player was. And it's Davis from the Eagles. The Eagles are just one of those teams. It's like, they have two, Carter and Davis are probably arguably the two best interior defensive linemen playing together. I mean, you could probably argue with Leonard and Murphy in Seattle too. So it's like, he was good because he got isolated on tackles a lot of the times and you were able to move him around. And then the secondary was also really sticky last year. So I don't know. The scheme needed to be perfect injury climate to win. It's not. I don't know if Gannon's back, but there definitely needs to be some soul searching with the Cardinals. The problem too is like everybody kind of knows that that's an old ownership group. They don't have the cash to do a lot of things. So if they're going to totally reset, you're going to kind of be back to square one because you need to get rid of everybody.
And guess what? There's a $50 million elf on the sideline that they also have to deal with. So, what are you going to do?
Right. What are you going to do with Kyle? You already basically, I think they've already told you that they're moving on from him just for the simple fact, like they didn't bring him back. So
they sat him down. Yeah.
No, your foot's still injured. We don't feel comfortable. We don't. And to their point, they don't want him re-injured so that they can then trade him because that's what's coming. They're gonna just be like, look, we'll take whatever, get him off.
Third,
get him off of our books. To me though, I think that if they kind of fall even lower. Still, it's a weird year because you don't really want to pick in the top 10 this year. You really want to pick in the top 10.
But do you want to set yourself up for 2027? And again, teams don't tank, organizations do. You have to make that organizational decision.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too. I think that you're just going to have to rip the Band-Aid off. I really think that that's kind of what the Jets have done. It will be interesting. We'll talk about them a little bit later, not a lot, but I think like you're seeing
more than any other football show out there.
Yes, but I think like it's like we're at the point now where teams are really having to look internally and decide like, okay, does Jonathan Gannon come back? If he doesn't come back, what does that look like? If he does come back, what are the fixes that we need? I think defensively, they're probably fine getting everybody healthy. You still need you got to fix the front in there and on both sides. The other thing too is like Marvin Harrison Jr. just looks more like Leggett than he does McMillan, if you know what I mean. So,
damn. That's an indictment, if I've ever heard one. All right, Steelers-Browns, AFC North matchup. And one of my favorite memes that gets reused is the stepping on a rake and then just to end up in the same position that you were with. Going 9-8 with Mason Rudolph just to go 9-8 with Aaron Rodgers, maybe, depending with next week pending. But the added part of it that I like, there's two added parts of it where it's like, they basically use the rake as a skateboard. It's like get Aaron Rodgers, trade for DK Metcalf, do all these things. Jalen Ramsey also to end up 9-8. But I also think that Aaron Rodgers in all of this in this game is a microcosm of it. Is like he likes to be a really good quarterback on his terms, on his exact terms, and he was not going to get sacked on Sunday. He was not going to let Myles Garrett get better, get closer on the sack total or whatever it is. And so it really frustrates me as a football fan because like Aaron Rodgers, you got like one, probably not 2 years left. So like, give it to us. We want to see you in the playoffs, seal up the North, and you have that opportunity in front of you. Do that now. These are it's a championship coach, a championship quarterback, and a championship organization. That wasn't a championship game right there.
No, and I think there's
especially against the Browns. Like I know Myles Garrett is an all-timer. It's the goddamn Browns.
Well, and I think there's a historical record too here with the Steelers of like losing to teams that they just absolutely should not. And to your point, like I can't remember where I heard it, but like Rodgers is so anti-Favre that he doesn't want to be the guy that gave the sack record up because that's what Favre did.
That's exactly what I was thinking too, where you think about it's like it's a little like Freudian, where it's like a kid grew up with an alcoholic dad, never touches alcohol, that's a good side of it. It's kind of like Brett Favre was such an asshole to Aaron Rodgers that it turned him into such an asshole on the other side of things that he's just not going to do it. He's not going to be that guy. And it's just such a weird deal that like you kind of have to like draw it all the way back to Aaron's first 3 years when he wasn't starting. And it's Brett Favre's fault, like most things.
Well, yeah, it's just the game watching it too. It was just like very much like he just was. I'm only going to throw short. I'm not going to even try and attempt to go long.
Like
Anytime
Phil Rivers was playing, and it makes sense they're close in age, but also that's how Phil Rivers was playing.
Yeah, what's the difference at this point? Yeah, let's pivot to Florida, where I thought Quinn Ewers had a much better game this game, which is I think that's understandable. Look, your first game in the NFL is going to be a little bit rough. I thought he rebounded pretty well. He's basically running the same offense as he did in Texas. The language is a little bit different, but he's doing that. I think too, the question here is does McDaniels survive this? We're at this point now where it's kind of like, okay, the Dolphins are the unsuccessful Steelers. Right, like they're not going 9-8; they're going 8-9, and they're finishing strong instead of a total collapse at the end.
That's funny.
They're the reverse Steelers, so like they're gonna give you just enough to make you think that they've got like, oh, okay, I've got a little bit of hope. I don't love the roster. I thought, again, this is another offense that doesn't have the offensive line. The defense is good, not great. They've got pieces, but they've gotten rid of some of the bigger pieces. So I don't know. Are they setting up for trying to get some guys in the offseason? Anthony Weaver could be gone as a head coach somewhere. We don't know. I think, too, like, let's go to the other side of this. Like, Todd Bowles probably if they lose to Carolina, he probably is done. Just because – and look, I am the biggest Todd Bowles fan. Like, I love Todd Bowles. I think he's an awesome defensive coordinator. But here we are again. Baker Mayfield is limping to the finish line. The defense has completely fallen apart at the second level, at the linebacker level. They can't figure it out. The secondary is meh. I think they have two good safeties. I think McCollum can be really good. I don't like Jamel Dean is kind of like he just continues to survive into the next year, but total collapse on both sides of the ball. And I think the question has to be asked. You have Dave Canales and you have Liam Coen, who we'll talk about Dave Canales here in a second when we get to the Cardinals, but I mean to the Carolina. But you basically were propped up by two really good offensive coordinators and Tom Brady?
Yeah, 1,000%. Like that. I mean, that is the unfortunate case, but like there are a handful of defensive coaches that do get propped up, namely Bill Belichick, but neither here nor there. Let's go to another game that happened. Saints Titans. And I know I say it's a game that happened. We end up talking about it for the rest of the pod, but Tyler Shuck. And I know that we talk about like he's been improving week over week, but I think that's also just kind of once you get more reps in the NFL, and he got drafted for a reason. But also, is this a little bit of a Kellen Moore story? Is this a bit of a deal where it's like, yeah, he can coach, but are they going to be too good to like? I mean, we've talked about Arch Manning just because that's a great Adam and Eve bit there, but at the same time, what do the Saints look like going into 2026? Because it also matters what they look like going into 2027, or would they have to trade up to get a guy like an Arch or Nussmeier or whomever else is coming out or whatever?
Well, this is a team that could go into the and look, I know the Falcons just beat the Rams, but like this is
I don't trust the Falcons. That win does not make me trust the Falcons not one bit more than I did after they beat the Bills.
Well, and I think too, like you look at it, their wins are against the Giants. They've beaten the Panthers twice. They've beaten the Buccaneers. They beat the Jets and they beat the Titans. So like they're on a 4-game win streak. Buccaneers, Panthers, Jets, Titans. They got the Falcons. I think they can win. I think you're right. Like they finished the year 7-10. I think you have to feel really good about this. They'll also jump the Falcons if they win this. So they'll actually have a better kind of like, they'll be slotted higher than the Falcons. I think when you look at it, I agree with you. Like, let there be a dumpster fire next year. Like, let's go into next year thinking that, hey, let's try and win. We're in the South. We can make it to the playoffs. I think that's the other thing that people need to understand is like, you just need to make it into the playoffs. You're in the South.
Like, we're sitting here this time next year. They're 8-9. Like, damn it. Like, we could have got a quarterback, but we're accidentally won our division.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you think I think it's going to go two ways. I don't think that it's going to be purgatory. I think Shuck will either he'll transition to being a top 15 quarterback next year. There's a lot of noise around him from a lot of the quarterback coaches that I kind of follow around. A lot of guys like him. I think Kellen Moore's system is kind of it's quarterback friendly. Dak had really awesome numbers in it. Oh yeah, by the way, Hurts had awesome numbers in it. So it's like he's already proven that, hey, I know the quarterback friendly system to do that. Then you put on, I think, Staley's reclamation project with that defensive roster. It's only going to get better, I think, because it can't get worse. Like the roster, they're going to unload a lot of these older players that are going to go off. They're going to be able to then bring in new players. They kind of got rid of a guy like Lattimore that's kind of like a headache, right? He's kind of like the Jair Alexander, right? Like, where you're great when you're here and you're playing, but when you're not playing, you're absolutely abysmal to be around. So I think this to me is a sleeper team for next year of like, hey, there's always a team that's just like, oh, they kind of came out of nowhere. I think this year, the Jaguars were definitely that this year. We'll go look at it. They had a really good offensive coordinator as their head coach that came from a good system that understood how to be a leader. On the other side, Campanelli has, I thought, done a masterful job as a defensive coordinator of kind of putting things together. Well, you have two really good coordinators in Moore and Staley. You have a quarterback who is, kind of ascending into being a decent young quarterback that's only going to get better, you have to assume. The defensive roster in the last month has been a top 10 defense in the NFL. And you don't even have, kind of quote unquote his players in the field house yet. So it's like, I think that this is a trending team, whereas the Titans are basically going to go who they beat. The Titans are basically going to have a full reset on offense and defense. There's just not a lot of talent there. They're kind of like the Raiders. There's just like, you look around and you're like, well, who's Cam Ward throwing to? Okay. And then defensively, yeah, you've got some pieces in the front, which is what you need. So you have building blocks, but I mean, I don't think that there's maybe two or three guys on defense that I think that you build around. You have one, you got to try and find one on each level. They got rid of, so I think you look at who's in better health from these two teams, and I think the Saints are trending. And look, people are going to be like, the schedule, but hey, that's the schedule they got. I'm telling you, this, you're a Kansas guy. How did Bill Snyder turn around Kansas State? Played a bunch of patsies early. Learn how to win. That's all you got to do. Learn how to win. Winning is hard in the NFL. It doesn't matter. Go ask the Carolina Panthers. They've lost twice to the Saints. You don't think that they'd like to have at least one of those? They have one of those games back there in the playoffs. They don't have to go. You don't have to play Tampa Bay to win the championship. So I think if you look at that, I think that you see that the Saints are trending.
Mm-hmm. And then Bob Stoops stole all of Bill Snyder's staff like a year later.
Yes, he did.
All right. Patriots Jets over by about the 10-minute mark in the first quarter. And just like Aaron Glenn's head coaching career. And I mean, just no picks. It's like you're 16 games through a 17-game season. What are we doing? Something at like as many tip ball interceptions as we see in the National Football League, one hasn't accidentally landed in your hands. That's insanity.
Insanity. And then you watch the Bears play the 49ers, and it's like they have the best
first play of the game.
Yeah, they have the best turnover luck in the whole entire league. And you're like, you couldn't have gotten one tip to like you couldn't have gotten just one. Yeah, I think
Patrick Mahomes' interceptions over the last 4 years have been tip balls interceptions.
Well, and I think to your point, like you're a corner, you were a really good one. You're a defensive coordinator from a very aggressive style defense, and it's like I don't know. I do agree. I think where there's smoke, there's some fire there. But yeah, I think that the main takeaway from this, and then we'll kind of move on. But I think the main takeaway from this is Maye is legit. I think Josh McDaniel needs to just pay the man enough that he will always be your offensive coordinator.
No matter who the head coach is. No matter who the head coach is.
He doesn't need to be a head coach. We know that. Just put him as a coordinator and let him. He reminds me of like a Cliff Kingsbury. Like, don't give him the head coaching job. Just let him call offense. Pay him what you need to keep him happy, and then just don't let him walk out the door.
And I mean, like, who in the AFC do you like more? Because I mean, I don't trust the Bills because I mean they couldn't get it all. They couldn't get anything against this Eagles defense, which we'll talk about here in just a second. And I mean, like, the Chiefs are obviously not in the playoffs. Who else do you like better in the AFC field? And I mean, hell, I mean, you're stupid Broncos, but like quarterback wise, I mean, Drake Maye, he gives you everything and more. Even if the Patriots defense isn't as good as the Broncos, I like the Patriots coming out of the AFC this year.
Well, I think, look, at non-Broncos, I think that my team is the Jaguars. And I think you watch the Jaguars versus the Colts. He made some big boy throws versus pressure. There was one where he had the Colts brought 3 through the A gap, and he just throws an absolute dart on the sideline. Receiver drags both feet, catches it there. I think it's the most dangerous team offensively and defensively. I love Liam Coen. I thought he was good with the Buccaneers. I thought he was good. I think people forget, like, they won 9 games at Kentucky when he was the offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Kentucky. So I think he's good. I think Campanelli, I mentioned him a little bit early. He's fantastic. He's worked for Flores and Fangio and Halfley. So he essentially the only system that's popular that he hasn't, like, had he worked for Mentor or McDonald at some point with the Ravens or Michigan, he might be the best defensive coordinator in the NFL because he has every playbook that everybody's trying to steal right now. So I think that Coen unlocks T-Law. So if there's one team that I'm scared of, I also think too, not enough is being said about, speaking of the Raiders, Jacoby Meyer going to the Jaguars. Somebody showed a heat map of
him and Rashid Shaheed going from the Saints and going from bad teams to teams that are contending and like making an impact on them. Shaheed having that punt return against the Saints essentially, or excuse me, the Rams essentially got them back in the game and won them late in it. And you're mentioning Jacoby Myers, but like those two are massive additions to teams that you didn't know if they were going to be able to make that next step, and that might be that one piece that does it for them.
Well, I think what you have in like finding Parker Washington, he's quickly becoming one of the better slot receivers in the NFL. Jacoby Meyer, what he does for you is he's tough, and 2, he pushes everything down the field more. Someone was showing a heat map of like pre-Jacoby Myers to post-Jacoby Myers, and like everything moves like almost 5-7 yards down the field, which what we talk about this all the time. You don't want to be a check down Charlie in the NFL. Like, we don't want your ADOT to be like 3. We don't want to do the Aaron Rodgers, like get it out and just everything's behind the line of scrimmage. Like, we don't want to do that. We want to throw it down the field. I think a lot of people were afraid with Coen that everything would be, but I think we're slowly finding out that he was doing that because that's the personnel that he had. Throw deep to Mike Evans, throw across the middle to Godwin, and then you've got 2 backs that are really good in screens in your screen game. So to me, I think it's the Jaguars in the AFC. If I'm looking for a team outside of the Broncos who I'm rooting for, I'm going to go with the Jaguars.
All right. I'll root for the Patriots for the first time. All right, Vikings, Lions. Lions get ejected out of the playoffs, which it is kind of heartbreaking when you look back at Dan Campbell's press conference from a couple years ago where he goes like, were they losing the NFC Championship game to the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. And he goes, we might not ever be back here again, and they haven't been. And this year they've been the furthest away from it. And partially, and a lot of it's due to, I think they've lost their coordinators and they lost that competitive advantage that they had, other than just saying like, yeah, we're tougher than, well, the NFL's tough. everybody's tough. So like it's going to be hard to keep your toughness rolling when everybody's tough. You need that extra competitive advantage. Aaron Glenn, you might be able to get him back this offseason, but then Ben Johnson, you have like these trick plays and these fun things that you want to do. They work particularly when you have a guy like that can do that. What else are they missing?
Well, again, this is another defensive scheme that wants to play nothing but base. The way that they can get away with it is play a bunch of man coverage. Well, guess who's both hurt? They're both their safeties. They're all pro safeties are hurt. So, okay, can't do that. Again, I'm going to repeat this. If your defense is going to live on a knife edge of the 11 guys that are out there in a 17-game season, you will not be successful. You're just going to have to pray for injury luck. And look, that's not happening. I think with Ben Johnson gone, Flores now has the upper hand in this. The second game to me was always the one where it was like a little hairy for the Vikings. It was like, what are you going to do? I always thought Flores the past 2 seasons went into that second game very vanilla. You would be like, wait, they're running like base defense. Like, where's the pressure? I think this year he was like, no, I hit you guys inside after inside after inside pressure on our first meeting. So I'm going to give you that look, and then we're going to hit everything off the edge. I thought it was perfect manipulation of it. In fact, if you're listening to this now, the video is going to drop on Match Quarters on Friday. I'm going to break it down for you how that worked. Goff hates pressure in his face, but they've never really had the answer for it, right? And I think they were also dealing with a new center. And so
Ragnar retired and they tried to bring him back.
Right. So it's just like, look, it was the perfect storm for them. And there was no answer. He was sacked 5 times. I think that Johnson always had a way to get the ball into space versus those pressure looks. That was not just like a screen. Right. Yeah. And I think because we've seen like Van Ginkel, you don't want to throw screens because Van Ginkel will pick it off for a touchdown. So we don't want to do that. This is why another example, put it on the list. This is another example of why McVay got rid of Goff. When you have to go into drop back passing mode with him, he just cannot handle the pressure. And that's why he wanted Stafford over Goff, and that's why he had less than a 30% success rate versus pressure looks in that. That's just not going to win you games. That's not going to win you games. And the fact that the Vikings won is amazing because that offense was terrible.
Whew.
Absolute terrible. Flores has gotten this team to 500. Like that is who has gotten this team to 500. They had 3. This is not a typo. Because I double checked. 3 net passing yards. He was sacked 7 times.
You remember the first week of the season when he was the offensive player of the week or whatever? JJ McCarthy, everybody. Yeah. Good God. All right. This Sunday night game, I like the idea that your kids are going to go back to school from Christmas break. Be like, how was your Christmas break? It was weird, but Dad was crying because there were just too many points scored in some Sunday night football game. Not exactly sure what happened. But Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, and Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, put up about as many points as picks were between them. Brock Purdy has 10 touchdowns in 2 weeks. Everybody relax. I'm the biggest Brock Purdy truther out there. Everybody pump the brakes. Remember, Mac Jones was awesome. He had like 340 yards against the Rams when they beat him the first time they played this year. I think that it's an all-time coaching job by Kyle Shanahan, and CMC's having their best year, so you're having to be defended a little bit differently. Some holes and lanes are opened up, but that doesn't mean that he's not executing it. But I think that the level of difficulty, and you saw it, Caleb Williams, dude. That's why you draft him number 1 overall.
Man, yeah. To me, that's...
And I want your opinion on this real quick, just because it's kind of a dumb theory, because I think like just watching football for as many years as I have, and like, well, I was an offensive lineman in my head. I'm not facing the way quarterbacks throw footballs, but I think that Caleb throws like this. It feels like when his passes are thrown, the football feels big when it comes out. Versus like a Trevor Lawrence, he feels like he throws smaller dart-like passes with like a Jared Goff, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just 2 different ways they throw it. But Caleb Williams, everything just feels like so just just like he's got like a Ben Roethlisberger ball, even though he's Caleb Williams and he's 6'1", 215, and he just puts it out there, and he's off of 1 foot rolling out to his left.
Yeah, it's just natural arm talent. I mean, when you watch him, I mean, the 60-yard touchdown where he literally just flicks the wrist and the thing sails 60 yards.
And
I mean,
his nails are painted.
And yeah, I mean that he's just. I think if he was like just. I don't want to I'm trying to be the most not necessarily politically correct, but like if he was just like normal, like if he was just like Jane Daniels, or
if he had Geno Smith's personality,
or just like even like Jackson Dart wearing some diamond necklaces, like and you're kind of a little crazy, sure, like even if you were just kind of like that, I think people would be it, but it's just like there's something about him that just a lot of people don't like, and so I just think that they don't want to like him. But dude, it's undeniable, and I think to your point too, like this is an all-time coaching job by Shanahan. One game that we kind of bumped over, and I just want to briefly talk about, is the Eagles-Bills. Look, you couldn't necessarily tell it was super rainy. Felt like the Bills moved the front a little bit more, chopped up the front to stop the run. So I thought that was good. They, again, typical, they dared Hurts to win, which is the story of the 2025 Eagles. They're going to have to make a decision. And we mentioned them, but Carter and Davis, Jalen Carter blocks a PAT, which ends up winning the game. So
yeah, even though they win the game, I think they show reasons why they're going to lose in the playoffs, or why they could lose in the playoffs, even though they won the game and are the reigning Super Bowl champions and could go back to back. I mean, the NFC's kind of open. I think the Rams kind of relinquished their hold of it over these last couple of weeks by losing and just at least falling out of the 1 seed conversation. So just kind of an interesting deal there. But Seahawks, that's the 1 seed in the NFC right now, dude.
Yeah, their defense is fantastic. Look, Bryce Young didn't complete a pass over 5 yards. There you go. Like and to me, Bryce Young is kind of been the story, is just like in Canales, like figuring out, like, look, they'll look really good. They'll do really well. And I implore everybody, go look at the Panthers schedule. Now, oddly enough, they got blown out by 2 teams, the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. And those 2 teams love to run the ball. Okay. The Carolina Panthers don't have the greatest defense, but go and look at their scores. This is a defense that is holding these offenses steady, and then the offense just is not coming in and fixing it. And Bryce Young, to me, looks like me trying to play quarterback out there sometimes. Like, of course he can't see. He's 5'10", and he can't run like Kyler. So it's like I don't know. Sam Darnold wasn't much better, but they were able to kind of have shorter fields, run the ball. They really leaned in. The run game showed up. That's kind of been their deal of like, they're kind of a fake running team. They get in 12 and 13, but they really want to pass the ball. Seattle's just so well coached. I think, like, to me, Mike McDonald, Sean McVay, and Shanahan, brutal. Absolutely.
Jonathan Gannon's like, you guys are going to fire me?
Brutal. And they're all young. It's different than the West. The West, how much longer do you think Harbaugh is going to be? I mean, Harbaugh, they'll probably have to, pull his, cold dead body off of the field.
It's a Pete Carroll thing.
Right. I think too, like Sean Payton will do this until everybody's Bill Belichick's him and is like, nah, bro, we're okay. We don't need you around. I think Andy Reid doesn't have much longer to go. So I mean, that's the difference between the West is old. Like the AFC West is old. The NFC West is young. These guys are going to be around for
McVay's been around for a decade and he's turning 40 next month.
Yeah. That's the insane thing. He's the 3rd coach, and we're talking by Lambeau and who's the other guy? But yeah, there's only 2 other coaches that have got 100 wins prior to it, and neither of them were around even in like the 70s. So it was like, yeah, McVay is special. We'll finish off with this. Just the Rams again fumble the bag against the Falcons. The Falcons look competent for about first half. Then the Rams kind of come back.
They give you about 45 minutes of competence, but they never like put it all together.
No, I just the Falcons again. It's like, look, they're gonna have a decision to make too. I guess Kirk. They were talking about on the broadcast last night that Kirk Cousins it fully expects to be cut. Where's Kirk Cousins gonna go next year? Is Penix really gonna be the guy? Does Raheem?
Third ACL? That's crazy.
Yeah, I hate it for the kid because I think I'd love to see lefties succeed. It's just going to be an uphill battle for him. And then too, like if you don't think he's the future, you're probably going to have to reset with Raheem Morris. Again, you fix the pass rush, but then you lose the coverage. It's like we got to put things together. I think he gets one more year. If they can't put it together next year, especially with the Saints ascending. And look, don't sleep on the Panthers. The Panthers to me are a couple guys away, defense, like an edge rusher away defensively from being really, really good. And then offensively of just like figuring out the quarterback position. Now, Bryce Young is still there. I don't know, but they've got things to figure out. Thanks again for joining us. Have a happy new year. College football playoffs. We'll have a lot more to talk about next week. Go watch football. Make sure to follow Let's Talk Ball wherever you're listening. If you're on the desktop, go to your favorite podcast and just hit subscribe. Make sure to give it a review. We appreciate you guys. 2025 is just the beginning. Me and Felix started this as kind of like, hey, we want to keep doing the talking kind of from our field vision days. We want to keep doing this. And I just need another person to talk football with. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Felix. Hey, go watch football. It's on every day now.